Welcome everyone, video lesson number 10, percents, fractions, and decimals. Today's question of the day is, how are percents, fractions, and decimals related to each other? Today we are going to convert percents to fractions and to decimals. So you should be able to rotate between those three after this lesson. So let's go ahead and get started on the warm-up. It says, shade the hundredths grid to represent each percent shown. In this case, we only have 1% shown. Then, write the equivalent fraction and decimal for each percent. So, in the warm-up, we just have 25%. Now, this is called a hundredths grid because there are 100 little units. Okay, it's a 10 by 10. 10 times 10 is 100. So when it asks us to shade in 25%, that means we have to shade in 25 of the 100 little boxes. So let's go ahead and do that. I know that this is a 10 by 10, so I'm going to shade in that set of 10, that set of 10, so that's 20, and then we have to do 5 more. So there it is, that's 25%. That's how you shade it in the hundredths grid. Now, if we were to take a look at 25% and look at it as a fraction, okay, 25% is equal to 25 over 100. So if you want to put that in the fraction down below, you're absolutely more than welcome to do that. You can simplify 25 over 100 by dividing both the top and bottom by 25. So if I divide 25 divided by 25, I get 1. 100 divided by 25, I get 4. So 25% as a fraction is 1/4. 1 out of every 4 boxes are shaded. Recognize how it's related to a ratio. Continuing, a decimal, 25% is the same thing as, just like above, 25 over 100. Now, in past grades, 25 over 100 is represented by just saying 25 hundredths, 0.25. So as a decimal, it equals 25 hundredths. Now, you're going to start to see a relationship between a percent and the decimal, and of course the fraction. You might want to start asking yourself, when it comes to percents, where is the decimal in 25%? You can't see it, but there's a decimal there. And when you convert the percent to a decimal, where does the decimal rather end? So you might want to look into that pattern. Before we move to example number 1, I kind of want to introduce an idea that you're going to see coming up within the next couple of lessons. Now, it pertains to percents. So if we were to look at 25%, I've already showed you several times, that represents 25 over 100. So 25 represents the part that is being shaded. We call that the part. Okay, so if 25 is the part, 100 is the total. We call the total 100 whole. So part over whole in this case is equal to 25 over 100. 25 is the part, 100 is the whole. So now let's go ahead and take a look at example number 1. Example number 1 says write each percent as a decimal. So here we go. 28%. When I look at the word percent, I'm going to break it down per cent. Whenever I see the word percent, I think of a rate because the word per represents division for me. Cent represents 100. So 28 per cent. In other words, 28 hundredths, 0.28. Let's continue. 40%. You see it, you say it, you write it. 40 per cent. That is equal to 40 hundredths or 0.4. They're the same thing. 4 tenths or 40 hundredths are the same thing. Letter C, be very careful here. 6 percent. 6 over 100 is 6 hundredths. 0.06. 6 hundredths is 0.06. That's your answer in this case. I've seen many students put an answer down of 0.6 there. It is not 0.6. It's 6 hundredths, which is 0.06. Lastly, 145%. Let's go ahead and write that. 145%. That's equal to 1 and 45 hundredths. Right? You see it, you say it, you write it. 1 and 45 hundredths. 1.45. Just like above, I want you to start to see a relationship between the percent and the decimal. Ask yourself, where is the decimal in 28%? How does it become 0.28? Where is the decimal in 6%? How does it become 0.06? Lastly, where's the decimal in 145%? And how does it become 1 and 45 hundredths? Let's check out example number 2. It says write each decimal as a percent. So whatever we did in example 1, it looks like we have to do the reverse in example number 2. So 0.35 is also known as 35 hundredths. From example number 1, this tells me 35 with the part, per with the fraction bar, cent, 100. That being said, we call that guy 35%. Let's continue. 6 tenths. Now, in order to change that to a percent, like I did there, I have to multiply both the top and bottom by 10. So that tells me that if I do 10 times 10, I get to 100. 6 times 10 is 60. So this is called 60%. 60 over 100, 60%. Let's continue here. 0.02. In other words, 2 hundredths. So do we have the denominator we want? Do we have the cent? We absolutely do. So here it is. 2%. 2 over 100 is known as 2%. Last one here. We have 2 and 25 hundredths. I can change that, recognize how it relates to letter D in example 1. I can change that to 225 all over 100. And there it is. 225%. So that's exactly what it is. 225%. I want to continue to stress that some of you may be recognizing a pattern between the decimal spots when it comes to decimals and percents. Look at the decimal in letter A here. Where's the decimal in 35%? Look at the decimal in 6 tenths here. Where's the decimal in 60%? How does the decimal move when you change it from a decimal to a percent? I think it's pretty easily seen in letter D as well. Moving to our last example here, example number 3, write each fraction as a percent. So you've learned in past grades that fraction bars also represent division. So 1/5 is the same thing as saying 1 divided by 5. Now if I were to divide that, 5 does not go into 1, but it does go into 10. So 5 goes into 10 twice. So when I multiply 5 times 2, I end up getting an even 10. So that's 2 tenths. 2 over 10. I can change that to something over 100. In order to do that, I multiply by 10. 2 times 10 is 20. So that's 20%. 20 over 100. In letter B, rather than dividing, I can just look at the fraction as 3/10 and know that 3 all over 10 is equal to 30 over 100. And there it is again, 30%. So we call that 30%. I've seen many students accidentally say that letter B is 3%. Okay, and again, you could show this using division. Letter C, I will divide. Okay, you can't go wrong by dividing. 1 divided by 3. 3 does not go into 1, but it does go into 10. In order to do that, I need to add a decimal place. 3 goes into 10 3 times. When I multiply, it becomes 9 with a remainder of 1 left over. Add another 0, and there it is. I get 10 again. So 3 goes into 10 3 times. You're going to start to recognize that this repeats forever. The way that we can show a repetition of a decimal is by putting a repeating bar like that right over the last digit. So our answer is 0.33 repeating. And if you were to recognize this pattern, this would become 33.3 repeating percent. Letter D, I just completed. 7/8 means 7 divided by 8. When I divide 7 by 8, I end up getting 0.875. In other words, 875 thousandths. Now, that doesn't tell me much using a denominator of 1,000. I need to make that denominator of 100. In order to do that, I need to divide by 10. 875 divided by 10 is 87.5. And there it is, the last one, 87.5%. So that's how we're going to write it. 87.5%. That does it for video lesson number 10. I hope some of you are starting to see a pattern when converting a percent to a decimal and a decimal to a percent. Also remember that when you want to convert a fraction to a decimal, all you simply have to do is just divide. Once you get the decimal, you can always change that decimal to a percent. Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.